YouTube, and your YouTube should also be up.
Okay.
There we go. All right. I think we're on all the platforms at the moment. Perfect. Okay, great. All right. So you got a real broad shot on yours.
Yeah, because I'm recording it with the camera too, so I can have like a good copy shot. So
Okay.
it's farther away, but it's okay. Like as long as I can be heard.
You can be heard. You can be heard. Well, anyways, welcome, Joe. It's an absolute pleasure to connect with you again. It's been a little while since the last time we got to play and, take a look at some of the things that were going on. You're close to heart to me as we've known each other for quite some time, and we've had a little bit of a journey together, and the collective evolution has done their part in, bringing out a pretty powerful message in the world. And of course, things are changing, of course, so that the messages have to get honed a little bit more to be able to give us a little bit more tools, a little bit more insight. And as much as, people get caught up in the whole, conspiracy and fake news and all of that stuff. I mean, when we really look at it, we have to look at it and say, okay, does any of this information resonates? I mean, you can look at the polarities. You can look at what is said on the mainstream. You can look at what you're sharing, what I'm sharing, whatever else. Go with whatever resonates, because you can't go wrong. This is the beautiful thing about it, Joe. You can't go wrong. You go, okay, I'm going to believe the mainstream, and you're going to go for that ride. You're going to experience whatever you're going to experience. But at some point, you're going to find that, hey, maybe this doesn't feel that good anymore. Maybe I need to look at something else. And this is what I've noticed with a lot of people, especially with everything that's happening right now. Even like Joe, I mean, some of the closed-minded people that I've, know of and connect with, because they're either in your family dynamics or something of that nature, started to question things. It's like, something doesn't make sense. It's something, we need to look at something else, because at that point in time, God forbid you mentioned anything about what was really going on at this time. And now they're questioning it. So it's a pretty cool time, because we're actually seeing some of the things that you've been wanting to see, and I've been wanting to see for the last 60 plus years coming together. So anyways, so it's great to connect with you and to play. So
yeah, there's a number of things that, so let's say we've been going through this coronavirus thing, I guess you could say, for about 6 months, right? Give or take a few weeks here and there. And depending on, when people started to look into it or experience what's been going on with it. And through that, there's this desire to, this deep desire at the end of the day to expand our experience, right? To expand, what we're doing here, not only within ourselves and our own identification of who we think we are. We want to expand that. We want to open up the potential. But on top of that, we want to expand then how our physical world operates, right? So we're seeing a desire to change our physical structures and so on and so forth. And so through that, this real world kind of wake up call, right? It comes, and it comes in different forms for a lot of different people. Right? Some people, it's like, I start questioning what's going on in my world, expand my awareness. That somehow leads me on, just like you were just talking about a journey, it somehow leads me on a journey. And I'm starting to now question, okay, wait, I've gone through all this and I'm now angry, right? And because I'm mad at all the things that these people have done, right? And so, here we are, we're sharing a message that's bringing forth this idea, guys, we don't necessarily have to be angry at what's happening. We need to step back into who we truly are. And that's bringing up a whole bunch of different questions, a whole bunch of different responses. And further to that, we'll share things about, say, the coronavirus, again, with the intention of helping us think a little differently, helping us to remove the fear, right, and so forth. And we'll get a lot of questions back from people. Further to that, we have a lot of other things playing out in our world right now, say with regards to racial tensions that are rising to the surface. So things that absolutely have happened in our past and in some cases are still happening today to some extent. But it's rising up as this incredibly loud thing to look at. And so, what I was doing is I was sort of gathering, and sometimes doing this work, no matter how grounded you stay, no matter how you try and make sense of all the different pieces that are coming out, right? You can't make sense in your mind of every little piece. It's not possible. You just got to go with how you feel. And so what I wanted to do, with part of why I said, hey, let's have this conversation, is we just gathered, for lack of a better, to sum this up, we just gathered all this experience, all this information, and all these responses from people, questions, all these different things that they bring up about, yeah, but what about this? But what about that? But what about this? And I feel like my answer to all of them is roughly the same thing, which is, yeah, it's challenging you to go back into who you truly are. And there's a whole process associated with what that looks like. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to get specific with a couple of the things that a lot of people seem to be feeling. And I wanted to throw down and hear your response, and I'll add what I have to say, or maybe you'll cover it all. We'll see. But one of the first things, and this again with regards to the coronavirus, because a lot of people are getting agitated about the mask situation, right? The mask situation can remain playful, right? But at the same time, it could also be seen as, well, if we wear the masks, then it's the precursor to mandating the vaccine, right? These are different perspectives people have. And then on the flip side, you have, well, it's okay to wear the mask because if it helps people feel safe, then I'm okay with it. So given those kind of different perspectives that you have going on, specifically the one about if people feel safe, then I'm okay with doing it. What do you have to say? What are your thoughts on some of that stuff?
That's a good one. Again, why would somebody feel safe of wearing a mask? Because somehow they believe that the mask will protect them, or in some way will reduce the potential to receive something of some sort, right? So some people still give a lot of power to fear, a lot of power to feeling unsafe, feeling that in some way that something actually has power over them, something can actually hurt them, something could actually take over their body and create, ailments or, cause death or anything of that nature. So, the way I look at it, if you want to wear the mask, but pay attention how you feel while you wear the mask, because as you're wearing the mask, do you actually feel free, or do you feel that you have to hide? Because as long as you're feeling that this is going to be my protection, then we're giving a lot of power to our victimized idea and concept that somehow, if I don't protect myself, if I don't do this, something can harm me, right? And a lot of people still give power to that. Now, I also have noticed, some of the places do mandate that you have to wear the masks, and others, when they're out doing other things, they won't. If they don't have to go in a store, they won't. But then there are others that wear it all the time, driving, you name it, right? But, we can look at it and say, okay, well, the mask represents giving away your freedom. The mask represents the fact of being enslaved and so forth, because there's a lot of talk about that too, and there was some references given to, showing back in the eras where, the masks were worn as slaves, being a slave. We can look at it that way and say, okay, yeah, we're going to show you this idea where you are stepping out of your freedom and you're going to do what we tell you to do, right? So people will have that experience, but they're going to come to a point, and a lot of people have already started to feel this. It's like, this is ridiculous, because do I need to be afraid of life? Do I need to be afraid to be doing, living in any way or interacting with anybody? And I might be okay for a little while to play that game, but I'm going to notice my world is pretty darn small. And not only is it small, I don't even feel comfortable. And you can see it because now you're afraid you have to have your social distancing and you got to have the masks and you got to, have all of the stuff. Now, of course, imagine you start to go into restaurants or you're going to gyms or places like that and there's plexiglass everywhere. You don't have that same connection anymore. And yeah, so what's it doing? It's really emphasizing, that part of our experience where, we feel that in some way or another, it's unsafe to be with each other. That's a further enforcement of separation.
Yeah.
But what does that do? That allows us to push, to maximize, to reach some saturation point of saying, okay, you know something? This is getting ridiculous now. And if it means that I have to live my life this way, then I'm choosing not to do it this way. And I don't care anymore. Like if I catch anything or whatever it is. I mean, there's a whole other story behind that. For example, there are people on there how can I say it? They're afraid to live life in a sense, right? So what they're doing is, say they have an ailment and they've had an ailment for a while and they're, just keeping alive, right? So they're in and out of hospitals or, they're palliative care or whatever, is going on with them, long-term, whatever it is. After a while, they start to evaluate, is it worth to stay alive and play this disabled state, or is it better for me to move on? Now, that could be from a mind perspective, but it's also from a higher perspective. Say, okay, I may be playing this role for a bunch of other people and for some agreements I've made. However, do I still want to support this? And they have the freedom to leave. So this is kind of what we're doing right now with this whole idea of the mask. So if you don't feel like wearing, don't wear one. And if you're wearing, ask yourself why you're wearing it. Now, if you're going to be wearing it because you can't go into the store, for example, you can't go to a public place without it, then you could choose to say, okay, well, I put it on, but I'm not going to give any power to it. And at some point you could even slip it off. Doesn't matter. It's interesting because Kimberly was saying that she goes to Loblaws and to one of the stores there, and everybody wears masks, but I think she says she does, they're kind of mandating it, but then she walks around and people have slipped it down, so they're only covering the mouth and they're still breathing because it does impede the breathing. And of course it lowers your oxygen and also collects all this other fun stuff in the mask. So there's a lot of back end stuff, but really what's going to change is people finally say, hey, we're not going to support this. We're not going to, abide to this. They can't do anything about it if the mass of people say no. Same thing with vaccines or anything else at this point.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's happening, and like this is kind of where, when I just took my little getaway and I was really trying to gain some clarity on what to provide in terms of information when people, because I can see all the different perspectives, and I for myself personally, I'm like, well, I feel like if I just work to a state of complete freedom within myself, then I will begin to play with choices as they are, knowing that there's no attachment to them and so forth. And it's just like, it is what it is, and whatever. But at the same time, there's another part of me that goes, but I also see that, like, things do progressively get a little tighter, right? There's a little bit more restrictions. And at some point, people do need to say, well, hold on a second. I don't want to do this anymore. And so what I see is there's the people who are feeling that, right? Now I would say there's very few who are feeling that and who are in a state where they're like, I'm not really giving any power to the emotional reaction of anger and judgment and being annoyed and pissed off, right? Like they're going through a lot of mind-made suffering as they look at these restrictions, right? And fight against the restrictions, right? So I see that side of people. Then I see the people, which is probably the vast majority, who are saying, well, no, it's important because we need to save lives, right? And what's difficult is, I know the answer. It's just hard for people to want to see it. And this is why I just want to come out and just have the conversation, because I know the answer is that at the end of the day, we need to continue to just find peace in the situation and continue to take action from that state of peace. However, most people do not feel that that will get anywhere, and they will fight the idea of playing with this idea of peace and coming into a complete potential state within yourself, because they believe that that's doing nothing, right? And so it's like, how do we help navigate this very polarized position that most people have, where very few people are truly in a state of freedom in looking at the situation? How do we bring more freedom to people?
Well, the thing is, and you've made some really powerful points there, and that's something I've also reflected on so many occasions, and a lot of the things that I've been sharing with people. You don't want to be in a position where you want to judge what's going on or feel that you have to fight it, because you're basically at that point, you're now creating a polarized conflicting energy, and you're really reinforcing the narrative. You're enforcing what is really on that side. And this applied also when, if you remember, and I'm sure you do because you've dealt with it, when people start to figure out what's going on the back end, you know, all the other stuff that's going on, all the so-called corruptions, all of the so-called, you know, pedophile, whatever, you know, there's so many different layers that have been uncovered. And, you know, people go into anger point. That's kind of the regular default, but it's not even our natural default. It's a default of seeing, okay, there's something wrong. We got to fight the system. So as you said, it does not mean that you're not going to make progressive change. However, you do it in a state where you are going, okay, this is the game. I'm not going to, from a clarity, I'm not going to fight the system, but I'm not going to comply. I am choosing to see things differently. That is 100 times more powerful than doing it the other way. So if people just said, you know, instead of going to riot and say, okay, you know, we're fighting the system, we're fighting the police or whatever it is, or whoever upholds the mandate or whatever the legal stuff that's going on, because you could see it. What happens to riots? What happens to it? And of course, you know, there's some fake stuff you know, on top of that. But anyways, what happens is people get all riled up and whatever. But when you're going in and standing up and saying, hey, listen, you have no judgment. You still have love for their role, because they're another aspect of you, and saying, hey, we are like you, but we are not choosing to support this way of life or this system or this law or this mandate of any sort. We're not supporting it. So people come together. So it's like a peaceful, I don't know if you want to call it rally, but a peaceful gathering. But the fact that you're making peace where you are now, it's already, you know, it's like we're all connected. Like we're like the internet. So you're just streaming it through all over the world, just because we're from a peaceful state seeing, okay, this is the game. Some people will like to play the game further, and that's okay. I love them for it, and I'm okay with this. And I choose not to participate there. But then at the same time, what happens is people start to see that there are more and more people that are, you know, making different choices. For example, one of the questions that came up just recently, and somebody goes, well, you know, I'm telling people that, you know, it's stupid to wear masks, is this and this and this and this. I go, don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I said, the only thing is, don't wear one if you don't want to wear one. But at the same time, if somebody asks you, you're not going to say, oh, because I think it's stupid. No, I've actually did some more research and I found some very interesting things about it that felt more in alignment and it resonated with me. And from the basic information that I received from all the different sides, this makes more sense to me. And that's why I chose this. Yeah. But you're not making them wrong. You're not telling them what to do. You're not making them feel bad in any way. It's like, from my observation and from what I've gathered, this is the choice I'm making. When somebody goes, well, you know, you're putting other people's lives at risk. I said, well, I don't see how that's possible because I'm not ill, you know, and I'm not, you know, it's not like I'm going around and I'm hugging and kissing anybody. I'm just being me, right?
But
and
then, like, well, you may have the virus and you don't know.
True
right?
enough.
And
True
then,
enough.
this is the challenge that I'm noticing is right now we're in this weird time where um, everyone has a comeback for every single possible solitary thing that can be said and done. Going back to the peaceful and the riots, and this will be a way for you to expand upon this a little bit, is, people will say, yeah, but the vast majority of what's happening, say with, the Black Lives Matter thing is obviously a very big thing going on right now. And they'll say, well, the vast majority of this stuff is all completely peaceful. Meaning, yes, there's a few rioters, but the vast majority of people are peaceful. They want a better situation for Black people in whatever given area. And sometimes there's a slightly different asks that they have. In some cases, it's we want to feel safer with regards to the police. And in other areas, they're saying, well, we want, say, a differentiation in prison policy where, more people of color are being put into prison systematically, right? So there's different asks all over the place. And some of which I'm like, hey, I totally resonate with you. I wouldn't want to feel, if the data suggests that a Black person should feel as though they have a greater chance of being put in confinement due to the fact that they're just their skin color is different. Yeah, I don't think I want to live in a world that's like that, because I don't see that should be there. So I think the vast majority of people believe they're peaceful, and this is where I guess the nuance comes into question. Is almost like, what would be the difference between the people who are believing they're peaceful, but they're kind of really still just fighting the little bits of the system, versus actually being peaceful? What would that look like?
Well, there's one thing making a statement and one thing seeing that something is wrong, and now I have to make them know that it's wrong, right?
Right.
See, this whole thing about, the racialism and because of the skin color and so forth, I mean, that's a really old operating system, a very old mentality that, existed for a long period of time. And it's coming to the surface so that we actually get to observe it once again and really just wrap it up. It's like, okay, it's coming to the surface and we don't have to play this game anymore. Now, there's two parts to that, because there's the one part is that a lot of the people that do the reinforcement and so forth already been kind of conditioned to believe that that particular race is more dangerous and more this or that. And that's kind of a programming and kind of a brainwashing sort of thing that the establishment has painted. But at the same time, the flip side is that particular race also has a tendency to want to, because of that chip on their shoulder, want to also act out in a certain way and may make it difficult too. So you're having both parts of it. But those two parts coming up is really to get to be exposed and say, okay, we don't have to support any of this any longer. So like you were saying, we can make the statement, we can be in a so-called rally, whatever it is, and this is with peace and so forth, but not seeing the situation as wrong. It's seeing that, hey, we're making the statement that, we don't need to play the game this way anymore. And it's not like, the skin color means they matter or don't matter, because if you really look at it, there's racialism on so many levels, even gender, because there's many parts of the world that have very little value for the female gender and whatever they represent. They're not allowed to do this or whatever. They are governed by, the man or whatever it is. So there's a lot of that old stuff that needs to be purged. And this is what's happening right now. So it's a matter of, does all lives matter? Yes. But at the same time, we're all here to play anyways. So let's play it, but let's upgrade the game. That's not give power to that part of it any longer. So it's really getting to the point is like, this is getting old. Let's shift this whole thing. Let's see ourselves as one. Let's see that we're all beautiful beings. And I know, I'm not even talking spiritual because I don't even go there anymore. But in the sense, what I'm talking about is the fact of the idea of when you have more consciousness, when you're more aware of what this way of life is, this game, why you're here and what's going on, you see it that, you take on different turns, to take on different genders, different colors, different whatever, and you come here to play. So it's like, great. you know, we have different experiences. But at this point in time, how do we want to play the game now? See, we can't still have all those compartments because you have racism, genders, and then of course you have the genders even broken up even further because you got male, female, and they got the transgender and whatever is non-gender, you know, all of that stuff that's in there. Those are all compartments, but they're all expressions. And the thing is, let's dance together. Let's see this beautiful thing coming together because we're just different expressions and whatever else. There's no one expression better than the other. Not one is right and wrong because it's not real. Because an expression is an expression or a representation or whatever the dance may be, right?
Yeah, I find like, so I totally resonate with what you're saying. It's where I think it comes tricky right now. Because like, for example, I you know, sometimes I'll share with people, you know, whether it's through the content or in a lot of one-on-one conversations, I'll say, you know, what are we asking for in a lot of the different things? It doesn't matter whether we're talking about the racism or the coronavirus stuff, the different restrictions that go on in the world, or laws or morality or ethics, or all these things that we make up from the mind construct, right? I say at the end of the day, if like, you know, this idea of experience being, I guess you could say, oneness consciousness or the field or the source of everything, when you experience it, right, which is experiential, it's not a philosophy, it's not a belief system, it's not a mental construct that you decide is, okay, this is how it is, you know, Jesus died on the cross, this is the story, this is what happened, I believe this, but no, this is experience, right? It's, you go into a state, meditation, sometimes it just happens in waking life. You're aware, you become aware, right? The more you feed the awareness, the more you live in that state every day. But when you're aware, you can feel and you can sense and you can understand that you're one with everything, not through mental concept, but through feeling and awareness, you start to realize, wow, that animal, that's me. That tree, that's me. That person over there, that's a man, that's me. A woman, that's me. The old white man, oh, that's me. The old black man, that's me. You know, everything, it's me. You know, and so through that, and this is what is so hard to express, is through that you suddenly don't need rules, morality, ethics, laws, any of those things, because it's like, do you need rules, laws, morality, and ethics when you're aware, i.e., not unconscious, where you're trying to harm yourself because you have some trauma or you have something, right? So those are things that we do need to deal with when people do struggle with that. I understand. But what I'm saying is, when you're aware, you don't need that to govern you, because you would not harm yourself. You would not do bad for yourself. You would not. It's just that doesn't make sense, right? But then there's this gap. There's that state of being, which we know, and deep down we know, one, we all want that freedom. We all want to feel and experience that. We may not know it yet, but that's where we want to go, right? But there's the world we live in today, where if you try and say that message to the vast majority of people, right? Some go, yeah, that sounds great, but what do we do right now to change laws, policy, and company policy and so forth to be more inclusive of people? And the trick that I have, the trouble that I have right now is trying to communicate that in some cases, yes, we can make some small adjustments and perhaps say, oh, this policy this company has, no, this makes no sense. Let's throw it out. But in other cases, it's like, you don't have any limiting policies. You don't have anything going on that's really limiting people. The only way for you to solve this is you would have to somehow forcibly govern every single company, every single everything, to know for certain that they're hiring people solely based on just whether it's merit, whether it's what, but not about race or color, right? It's impossible. You start to realize it's impossible to create more policies, more this, more that. In some cases, yes, but in most cases, it's like, it's impossible. But that's what people want. That's how they want to take action, because it feels as though that the vast majority of people being in, let's say, a more unconscious state, where they're identifying with the thoughts, they're identifying with the mind, they're identifying with all this stuff, it doesn't feel like we could ever do and make an impact and help make the world a better place, because this state of consciousness of oneness that we just spoke about seems unattainable. How do we rectify that in this moment?
Yeah, that's a big one there because you know you've covered quite a few there, but in regards to the whole, we have to understand the more policies you put in, the more restrictions you put in, and so forth. Like you were saying, okay, now we got to put out new policy, new restriction, new law, new this, so that in one way that everybody's equal and so forth. That's still operating from that old system, feeling that unless we have it, people will not, comply. For example, right? Because the main belief that people have that we are selfish, that we are, destructive, that we are, in one way or another, do not care for anybody or anything of that nature. We want to take advantage of other people. We're violent and all of that stuff, saying, and I've heard this, and you probably have heard it lots of times, where this is human nature, or this is what humans are. Well, in fact, that's not the case at all. That was all the programmed part of it. So, like you said, when you actually start to connect with the sense, like you said, this is me, that's me, that's me, then none of those requirements are even, it's not putting more laws, you remove more of it, because in fact, you start to see that we're all here to play together. We're all here to experience each other. And why would I want to, harm, let's use that word, harm that other aspect of myself or take advantage of that self? Because we believe that if we don't, then we can get harmed. If we don't take advantage of them, then we won't survive. Again, those are conditioned programs, and that's being challenged right now within ourselves, because there's a part of us that's really saying, very powerfully for everybody, really, but not everybody's acknowledging it because the mind is still extremely active. And when I'm talking about the mind, I'm talking about the ego software, okay? It's the ego software that actually runs most of the mind, because the mind is very powerful. It receives information from your body, which is an innate consciousness of an evolved species of humanity and its true design. It also receives information from the level of soul called the human entity, which is basically the part that actually understands the human experience through its 15,000 years of existence on this playground, because there have been other series before that, and from the soul. So you have three powerful streams, and then you have the ego. And the ego actually is like a software, like you can be on your computer, for example, and a lot of people can understand some of the jargon about computers. Your computer can be really loaded up to have tons of information, but it takes only one little virus in there to start disabling how it works. So the virus now starts to control your computer. And that's what the ego's done. It's actually controlling the way we think, the way we feel, how to respond, and so forth. But it's conditioned by whatever it's being taught, told, and then because it has its own operating system that likes to create separation, polarity, right, wrong, good, bad, fight and flight, and all this fighting stuff. So, like we were saying, when you start connecting to the other parts of you, that starts to go into the forefront as your operating system rather than the ego's version of it. Now, of course, we have a subconscious mind and we have a lot of perceptions and belief systems and so forth from our experience that it's been labeled. But that doesn't have any power unless we associate with it or the ego takes it and uses it, because the subconscious mind doesn't have too much judgment. It has a label. It's like any software or any program you have on your computer. Unless you launch it and you want to play with it, then you do. But if not, but if there's somebody that keeps going in and playing with it all the time, which is kind of the ego part, and that's the thing. So that's being challenged right now. And of course, we're not even receiving that type of support that we had before. And this is why a lot of things have accentuated, because, as long as we're afraid of each other, look at it this way. Our natural state doesn't have any fear. Our natural state is not survival in any way, shape, or form. That's programmed. It's conditioned, programmed response. okay? And feeling unsafe and all of that stuff is all associated and connected to it. It's not part of our true operating system. So if you don't feed it, if you don't continue to stimulate, oh, you got to be afraid of this, afraid of that, and that's why new things come up. Okay, yeah, it's dangerous out there because of these viruses, or it's dangerous out there because of people are going to hurt you, and we now are dangerous because of these different groups and whatever else that are out there and so forth. If that's not stimulated, what happens is our reference point changes because it does not, it's not something that is something we can hold on to. And this is why you see, like if you notice, I mean, if you watch television, if you watch movies, you watch whatever, there's always right, wrong, good, bad, police, guns everywhere, it's always threat, threat, threat. There's very little of anything that does not represent that in any way, shape, or form. Why? The question is why? The question is because if you don't continue to stimulate it, people start to connect with one another and start to feel connected, but also in a playful, light, loving way. And that's the other thing we're having right now, these bursts of energies, not only from the Schumann resonance, which is the frequency that's emanating and so forth, all that we're being exposed to right now is stimulating more and more for us to go into that natural state. Now you see the media, we have to find something else to keep them under wraps. In fact, scare the shit out of them and have them lock themselves in the house and do whatever, right? So now we come up with this thing. And this was great. When I saw it come up, and I thought, okay, well, that's going to be interesting because it's going to feel confined. And it's going to push people to the point of saying, hey, this is freaking insane. What do you mean I can't even go to the beach or the park or go outside or anything of that nature? I mean, a lot of that is opening up now, but, just get to that point. Really, because it's showing the insanity. Why are we giving power to this? Okay. In fact, people are truly not violent. They respond in that way because they've been programmed to that way, but they also see it because they believe other people are. That's the only thing. So what's happening right now with what we're doing is we're starting to evaluate and look at things in a more clearer way. Because really, what's changing? Are we becoming more spiritual beings? What does that even mean? What we're doing is we're accessing more consciousness, more awareness.
Yeah.
That we are more than this physicality. We're more than the game we're playing. We're more than, in fact, we're powerful creators, meaning that we can shape our reality any which way we want. We can choose what we want to give power to. We can choose who we want to play with. We can choose what game we're going to engage in. We have that freedom. So that awareness is coming forth more and more. So what are people doing? People are starting to look at things and question things and start to ask themselves things. They start looking at it. See, the meditation, really, what is it about? When you're meditating, you're just quietening that ego mind and giving yourself an opportunity to connect with the other parts that are communicating anyways. So what you're doing is you're kind of moving aside the ego part out of your mind so that the mind actually has those other resources to start to design its life stream in a different way. So this is why people use meditation, so that they can connect with themselves. But we're always connected. The more we go into the observer state, the more we start looking at, let me see the game of life as what it is, a game of life. It's playing around me. I'm not going to see it right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm going to see it the way it is. However, as me, the designer, creator, that I'm saying about anybody, how would I reshape this? What would I like to see? And the whole idea too with, we have to have change, and then we have to have new monetary system, and we have to have new government. We have to have all that stuff. That's still all that inverted, backward stuff and that's not going to work. Like you were saying, it's not about putting more laws, more mandates, or having a much more military or more power from a president or a prime minister or any other. It's not about that. It's about allowing people to kind of get connected more to themselves and say, okay, how do we want to reshape this? There has to be a dialogue. There's no more dictatorship. And then this is what's happening with a lot of the governments and so-called experts. There's a dictatorship, for example. Like you've seen it with even the coronavirus. Okay, look at all of the stuff that's come out. You got both sides of everything. You know, it's like, oh, this and this. Even some of the organization, you know, the WHO and the CDC and all that stuff. You know, they come up with this and then, you know, they get bashed by it and then they're lowering and lowering and lowering. And then you're seeing how all the back end stuff that's going on, which is absolutely amazing. And it's beautiful to watch because it gives people the opportunity to say, hey, I don't think they know what they're doing. And not only that, really, why am I giving that much power to it? And I'm following what their rules are when there's a moving mark all the time. You know, it's like, no, and so should I be in line up for the next vaccine that comes out? Should I be lined up and wear, you know, masks and so forth, whatever, right? So that's the choice they make, or anything else too at this point. So when we're looking at it, it's really people to understand that, hey, this is a game. We have the opportunity to shape it any which way we do it, but it starts with us. It starts with each one of us saying, how do I design my life without giving power to it? So now if you have to go to work or something of that nature, say, okay, I'm going to go play that game. However, at the same time, I'm going to look at it, how I can adjust it and possibly look at a different thing to do. By just experiencing that, already it's creating an opening. So if something is mandated, like for example, people have this belief that the game of life is what I've been taught, or the game of life is the way that everybody else is doing it. Well, if you ask yourself, does this resonate? Do I give power to this or whatever it is? Yeah, we all do. It's a great experience for a while, but then you look at it and say, well, you know, I don't think I want to play the game that way. And this is what's happening to a lot of people that we call awaken or awakening. They come to a realization, wait a minute, I don't know about this game anymore because it really does not even feel aligned with me. And I noticed that it's not supporting me anymore. It feels uncomfortable, whatever. So that's what's happening with people, and more people are giving themselves the opportunity to do so. So when we see people going through all of that, yeah, okay, go play. However, okay, there are other ways to play the game. Like when people say, well, you know, we need to have laws, we need to have all of this stuff. Just put it this way. Every law, everything that we have in place, it's all made up anyways.
Yeah.
And it's made up. Nobody's hard fast with it. We just bought into the idea and we're sporting it, but we can change any of it. And it does not have to have the old rules applied to it or old way of looking at it. And so that's coming to a point where, oh, wait a minute, we can do something different. Like, for example, look at the money thing. There's no money, okay? Governments have no money. There's no this or that. That's what has been projecting. All of a sudden, we have this shutdown and trillions of dollars appear, and we're now sending money to different companies. We're sending money to people and whatever else. And you go, where's all that coming from? Okay? Yeah, okay, well, there's the Fed, you know, they're printing out and the economy is going to crash because of it, or inflation or whatever it is. And it's like, it's coming out of thin air. You can pull it out of thin air, put it back in thin air if you want. You can do anything here because it's all made up. It's all fake, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, we play the game, whatever. So that already gave an example. It's like, oh, when we need to, or when we believe we need to, all of a sudden we can do this. Well, yeah, can we change it so that we can start eliminating some of the old technology, old ways of doing things by just, okay, the bridge will be, we'll stream whatever is necessary for people to do the transition and all of that. So these are all kind of coming to pieces right now to come into place. Really, it's about people opening their minds a little more and say, hey, wait a minute, let's really look at this rather than become robotic. And most people have lived their life in a robotic state. It's like, this is the game, this is the rules, this is this, I got to follow this, you know. And I've seen where people say, well, I can't change it. You know, you know, it's not my, it's, you know, they're telling me how to live life. And I go, yeah, they're telling you how to live life. It's your choice how you want to live life.
Yeah.
And you could play the game loosely, but you're not going to give it any power, right? the thing is, you have to comply, you have to choose. But if you're going to come, if you're saying, I'm not complying, I'm going to fight it, well, then what happens? The polarity increases, and then you're going to feel bound, and then you have to go into fight mode. It takes two people to tangle. It takes two people to fight. The thing is, if one of them doesn't want to participate, the other one can't support it, because it's not possible to fight with someone that doesn't want to fight. And I'm not talking about fighting in the sense, oh, I'm afraid and I'm going to get hurt and I don't want to fight. No, it's like, no, we're not playing there. We're not going there. I'm not interested. Because then the energy is not there to pull them to conflict with you. It's like, yeah, right. See you later. And, and this is what the thing is. So the government, authorities, whatever you want to call it at this point in time, could say, hey, we got to do this. This is mandatory, whatever else. And people go, yeah, right. We're not interested. We're not even going there. You're not going to say, oh, you bastards, you're trying to control our lives or whatever else. That's just reinforces the thing. Then you're into conflict, and then you're going to have mandates or mandatory, whatever you want to call it. They can throw out anything you want. Mandatory this, mandatory that, and say, well, not interested. We're not playing there. And more people say that. They have no reinforcement. And even the ones that are trying to reinforce it are going to be able to not support it either, because they start to see that. Because you know what happens? When people go into fight, they go blind.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't see anymore the rationality or even the reality. So if somebody's trying to force you, to do something, and you're going to fight with them, they're in fight mode. They're blind. They have no rationality. It's like, no, they told me I have to inject this needle in you and I got to pump this in you or else you can't do anything anymore, whatever. They're going to go that, but if you're going in and they're saying, well, this is the law, and say, well, the law is the law, but I'm not choosing to participate. Well, it's a must. It must be a must for somebody, but it's not a must for me because I'm choosing otherwise, right? But you're not fighting it. And you go, listen, as far as I'm concerned, from what I understand, that's not really going to do what I want it to do. And I have free choice. And what happens is the person that wants to inject you, you've just stimulated something. And then the next person does that, stimulate. And then they're going to go, what the hell am I doing? They start to look at it themselves. So this is really why it's so important for us to start observing it and seize the game and whatever it is. Like even the changes. And I know you hear it all the time, because I hear it all the time too. It's like, oh, this is going to take forever to change, to make a better world, or whatever it is. It's not. But if we're going to try to do it the old way, or we're going to try to do it that way, and we're going to go through all the stages bit by bit by bit, then yeah, it can be long. It can go long, but we're not up for that game. So it's like, yeah, if we get together and more people are going to do that, and they already are doing, and say, okay, how are we going to shape this so that it actually makes us flourish and get out of this fight and flight or survival state and go into flourishing? How do we create a playground where I feel good, you feel good, we get to feel good, we get to express fully, we get to bring and use our gifts rather than being mandated or feel that we have to play the game a certain way? I mean, there's a certain love of the dance of being in a restricted mode, a challenging mode or whatever it is. But I think most of us are all saturated by it, or at least getting to that point where it's like, no, we're not going to play it that way. I want to be myself. And the being the myself is not the self to say, oh yeah, I want to have these riches, I want to have all this stuff, because that's not even real either, because that's another program. Well, you're happy when you have all this stuff. You're happy when you have resources and finance. You're happy when you have a beautiful person next to you. You're happy when people adore you, whatever it is. That's program, because really happiness is another polarity thing, because it's the opposite of sadness, but it's in fact being in a state of joy, playing the game, enjoying whatever you choose, but it doesn't have to confine you, because even ownership and control and so forth creates confinement, creates restriction, create heavy maintenance, Yeah. So look at some of the people that have shifted their lives. Either they had a near-death experience, or they had a major illness, or they had a breakdown because of their life. What did they do? they start shedding all the other stuff that they don't need. It's like, okay, I'm going to downsize. And when they're talking about downside, I want to be more free. I don't want to, have all this infrastructure that I have to continue supporting. That means I have to work 40 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours a week, and I have to produce this much money, and I have to have these many clients or whatever it is to support this system when I can't even enjoy the system. And is really the system supporting me, or am I just bound in that? So you see how those changes occur. And we're going to notice that a lot of things that we give a lot of power to, we just start to shed it because it doesn't support us. It doesn't feel natural. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to have anything, but we will do things differently, and we will not require so much of whatever it is. Because, we've talked about it before. 90% of all the jobs out there are all make work projects.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it, if we actually allow some of the technologies and some of the obsolete ways of doing things go, under the idea that everybody has to have a job, that we have to have an economy, if we just drop that part of it, we will see all the replications, all of the inferior stuff that we've created, all this stuff that we've programmed that, I have to have the latest this and latest that, whatever it is, and I have to have disposability because, we have to keep the economy going. We got to put people back to jobs and whatever else and all of this stuff. If we just start dropping that, then we will allow other things to come into place. So we step out of slavery, because as long as we're under the idea that the only way we're going to survive is we have jobs or that we make money, which is an interesting little game, then, we're enslaved. We're actually never getting a chance to live life. And more people are saying, it's time I want to live my life. I want to live life. And you don't want to wait until you get to the retirement. And in most cases, when you get to retirement, people don't even have the resources for it to be able to retire 100% or make their life so small because they only have a certain amount of digits on a computer that say, well, you have to, you don't know how long you're going to live. And you have to play very small. That stuff, that was a pretty interesting old game, but you're also looking at it and saying, why would we want to still give power to any of that? This is all being challenged right now, Joe. I know it doesn't always seem that way, and I'm sure you see it, and people were saying, well, what's going on? We're being challenged. So we don't need the near-death experience
right
to start looking at our life. The lockdown played a huge role in that right off the bat. What is going to even they're planning to roll out later on in the year will push it further. Is it going to go to a point where, we buckle down some more and we go, no, we're not going for a second round here. We're not going to do this again. I don't care what's out there, and then when you really do understand from a deeper perspective, and I know you understand this, and I'm just saying this so that people actually understand with themselves, you are ultimately in charge of what experience you have. You can be surrounded by thousands of sick people breathing on you. You can take on all the codes of whatever, every disease that's out there. But you're not going to have an experience of taking any of it unless in some way you have a fear or you have something that you say, oh my God, I'm going to get this and this is going to happen to me. You have the freedom because look at it this way, Joe. The truth is, this virus that they've created, this corona thing that they put out there and made into a pandemic idea, because it's just that, an idea. Look at how many our body is surrounded by viruses. It's surrounded by bacteria. It's part of the foundation. It's the way that the body actually evolves with all of this stuff, right? The only time that we get overwhelmed is that if we're having emotional stuff or the body starts to get overwhelmed, and then it's not the virus that's overwhelmed, it's the toxicity and so forth because of how we live our life, how we think, how we feel, the stress, and also what we may consume that reinforces that state. Or else, really, just going beyond that, it doesn't matter who's around you. You don't have to pick up anything. And even though it's there, it's an offering. It's like, do I take the offering? Do I experience it? Do I play with it? It's the choice, right? And this is the thing. When you get to that realization and then get to the realization and say, hey, we're the designer here. We can change anything. We don't have to wait for some, government or some, savior to come along to change our life. Wait a minute. That's not empowerment. That's disempowerment. That's feeling, oh, I'm a victim until somebody comes and rescue me. That's not real. That's an illusionary that we've been fed and we adopted. And we cannot see wrong what we've have as our playground right now. You can't judge it. It's just a beautiful playground, but we are getting to a point where we are evolving above the playground's way of playing, right? So we're just shifting that part of it. That's all that's really happening.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the viruses and the bacteria evolving part of the human experience and part of the body. And when you consider all of the mask wearing, the glove wearing, the sanitizing every 5 seconds, it's like our exposure to viruses and bacteria we're shedding away constantly so that it's get rid of that. Well, that's what lowers the immune system. That, based on what you're sharing there, would even potentially change the way our bodies are evolving to another incoming virus or whatever else may be going on that's pushing things forward. But it's interesting because so much of what you talked about there relates to just the idea of choosing to play a different game and it's hard to express this like it's not that you're trying to live in the future, you're living in the moment now, but saying I don't want the future moments that are coming up to continue being this game because I feel that there's something bigger and deeper coming. And so I would like I'll play the game as it is in this moment. I'll accept what is inevitable and I cannot change just in this moment. However, I want to continue to adjust. So I'm not going to let the current moment create all this suffering, but I'm gonna utilize it to adjust the future as we move forward. And so as people are doing that, there was a conversation going on. A prominent author in kind of the spiritual community had posted on his Facebook, this whole idea that he was voting for Joe Biden because having Trump in office again would be absolutely disastrous for the United States, and it would absolutely destroy everything that's going on, and we would be in hell essentially, and da. And it's interesting because the vast majority of people on the thread were saying, "Oh, I totally agree. This is blah 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 blah." A couple people were saying, "No, Trump 2020, Trump 2020, right?" And I came in there and I said, "Why is this always the conversation? As soon as November comes around, which is the typical voting time, right? Every 4 years, it always turns back to okay, fine. Who's the lesser of the two evils?"
Exactly.
I'll just, fine, who is it? Okay, this is who I'm voting for. And I think to myself, I'm like, why is the conversation even in the realm of your only choice is those two people? Do you want to continue to plug into the reality? Like if your perspective is that Trump is a disaster and the system you're plugging into created Trump, why do you want to plug back into that system? Like, do you think that they have any power whatsoever if millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people weren't putting their power into it, right? We are in numbers, right? Why are we not discussing? Why are we not coming together and saying, hey guys, like when I tell people I don't vote, they look at me like, I'm nuts, or that I'm some like rebel who judges the process of voting. And it's like, no. In my heart, voting is not going to lead towards, and I'm not saying voting as a tool, meaning if you were all in a room and said, hey, what kind of food do you want right now? And, a whole bunch of people, we said we can only pick one, right? And a whole bunch of people said pizza and one guy said pasta. Okay, fine. In that case, voting is fine. What I'm saying is the way in which it's functioning today within our society, to which we put a prime minister, a president, a leader, a dictator, whatever. Well, dictators don't have votes, but when we put these people in the positions of power, does this system create a thriving community? Does it create a thriving country where you are, I'm not talking about thriving from the standpoint of, hey, GDP rose this year. I'm talking about, does it create an actual reality where we are thriving and it resonates with the deeper aspect, the boundless infinite potential that we are within ourselves? Does it resonate with that? No. So why are you plugging into that conversation and that action? And it's like, people, how dare you give up your right? People, fought for your right to vote. all these different stories. And I think to myself, like, it feels at times like there even needs to be something more intense to happen to get people to unplug from this voting idea that, and again, not the idea of voting, but the voting in the way it is today. Because as November approaches, right, I've been, observing the United States and tuning into the various energies and all these different things that are going on with just the people, right, the collective that's there. And the sense that I get is that unless something sort of major occurs that causes something to adjust consciously very quickly, it's going to be quite intense, like insanely intense as it approaches November, not just from the standpoint of the coronavirus being probably a second wave, they'll start saying, all these different little stories will come out and da 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 da. So that'll bring in more fear, but at the same time, the tensions of the potentiality that someone who, they've been told is basically Hitler. For 4 years, they've been told by the media, this is Hitler. You guys have Hitler as your president. You have 50% of the people, roughly, maybe, this is a guess, but 50% of them who think it's Hitler, and 50% of them who think, you know what, yeah, he's okay, he's doing a job, right? The truth is just, it is what it is, right? It's really not that, it's no different. He's not doing anything different than anybody else has done, except for maybe one little offhanded thing here, and maybe something here that kind of threatens some powerful people over there, right? That's about it, right? And yet people are like, they're going to go to war. That's what it feels like, right? Now, of course, whatever happens, happens. I'm not saying, I don't think it's necessarily going to go to a full-on, gunfight in the streets or anything, but it feels like it's that intense. Like, it's almost like this upcoming election could potentially be that tool that's necessary for people to finally go, wait a minute, did we all just go absolutely insane over this little mechanism that never changes anything anyway? And that could be the wake-up call that we're waiting for from a United States collective. Of course, the world will observe and gain their own insight from that, but it seems more intense in the country of the United States than anywhere else when it comes to that particular process.
Yeah, no, excellent point there, because there's this notion, this idea that if we put the right person in power, the world will change. Like, even look at, say, okay, we'll put Trump aside, all right, for now. Look at the other presidents that were there before. Like, even the one that everybody seemed to have loved, Obama, whatever it is. What changed? What changed? In fact, it got even tighter and whatever else.
Yeah.
So Trump comes along, he just kind of shakes everything up. I mean, he's got his own characteristics and so forth, and certain changes. But is that the answer? Is that what really is, making us flourish in the sense? Because it's still the old idea, the old way of life. Yeah, okay, he's bringing jobs back to America, making America great again, and whatever. Well, I didn't realize it was ever great, Experientially, yeah, okay, every playground is great. And everybody going to work, okay, well, we got money moving around, so it's got to be great again. But how many really feel that that's the answer, Because, like you said, it's going to bring to the point where people are going to be, and the accentuation of polarization started, really in March, where you could see all of a sudden, what the heck's going on? There's even more divide, more intense. And in May, it went to another level. And in November, getting closer to that October, November, you're looking at that other thing being presented again of, do I go this way, that way, whatever it is. But, the thing is, we're still holding on to the idea, and people are starting to realize that we need to have the right person in place, because that will make the difference. That will make our life better. But that's not how it works. Well, how it works is that we say, okay, how do we want to make life better? How do we see it? Because if you look at it, the true thing, why is a government there? A government is there to create equality, balance, and harmony for the people. So in fact, they're servants of the people. And when I say servants, that they are putting in place and shaping and just being kind of the back end workers that allow us to experience what we want collectively, not for them to tell us how to live life, or for them to put new laws and regulations and whatever else, and for them to fix anything, because it's not about fixing anything. It's about how are we going to do it. Now, both parties, neither one match what we really want to shape in our life.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who steps in, you know, well, yeah, one's rattling the cage and doing this and probably emptying some swamps or whatever it is. And the other one will just fill the swamp back up or whatever, or vice versa. Who knows? It doesn't matter. But like you said, I'm going to vote for the one that's the lesser evil. It's like, wow, is that how it works?
Is that how we want to live?
Is that how it works? We got to choose what's less evil? Or why don't we say, hey, none of the above, and we want to put a leadership that actually matches what we as a people would like to. Now, of course, a lot of people don't know what they want or know how to live life outside of what they're playing, because this is the thing. The big card that's playing out all the time is safety, okay? And the safety card is, if we can keep the systems in place and all the restrictions in place, then we'll be safe. Well, safe also represents smallness. It also represents confinement, slavery, and all of that stuff. Because for you to be safe, you might as well put yourself in a room, padded and everything else, and get your little food in there. But is that the life you want to live? You know, this is the thing. Let me put my time in and then I'll leave. Like, okay, is that all you came here to do? Well, then enjoy it. Have that part. Or did you come here to really experience life? Look at it this way. I'll throw this in there. I've worked with many, many people that are on transition, and sometimes their souls show up, you know, after they transition, right? And one of the things that come up, and this even happened in my own mother, which, you know, was pretty fascinating because she was very close-minded and very religious too. When they actually left the body, and the ego mind wasn't operating to the same degree because it's not there anymore. Wow, you know, it was like, all of a sudden, what life on earth looked like hell, sacrifice, and putting your time in, now looks like, wow, that was a very interesting playground. Man, I could have made some changes and so forth, and I could have really experienced it differently. I've seen this pattern over and over again. So why don't we just do it now? Do it now and say, hey, let's play with this game. Let's reshape this game. Let's take action to do so. Like one of the things I said a few years ago, even when the election came out, I said, well, it's this one or that one. At one point, it's just like none of the above. You know, we're not choosing any of them because we don't agree with any of them. And then we don't want to be governed by any of them either.
Right. Well, that's an interesting thing because there is actually on the ballot a non-confidence vote that you can make. But I looked at that and I'm like, that's an interesting idea. You can vote non-confidence, but I'm like, but the non-confidence in context is, I have confidence in the system, but not the people. Right. And when in reality, I'm like, I'm not sure that I have confidence right now in its current situation. I don't have confidence in any of it. Right. But that's an interesting question, right? Because it's like people will view that, and very great question that people do come up with. It's like, well, is that maybe the way to go? I don't have confidence in these two people, and then of course, then people turn around, oh, that's a wasted vote. You should have just voted for the lesser of two evils. The independent vote's always a waste because it's like you're just giving it to whoever. Yeah, it's like, it's just this thing all day long. At the end of the day, and this is why I love it. At the end of the day. The part of me that stays super present, is I'm okay with, the speed to which this occurs. But there's another part of me that goes, man, I'm not sure how we're going to get everybody to have the experience of expanding their consciousness and feeling this stuff. And some people will say, well, there's a shortcut. It's called psychedelics. You give them the shortcut and they'll suddenly see it and they'll get it. And I'm like, I've not met a single person who's done psychedelics and their whole life is now, living through this way, shape, or form. The guy who posted the initial lesser of two evils thing, he's a psychedelic guru, and here he is still saying, well, we just go for the lesser of two evils. And so there's a part of me, and this is like, part of the personal work, the inner work that I go through when I slip into little states of unconsciousness, and you're like, I'm kind of feeling like there's not that many of the larger voices, you could say, and it's not to say that there's levels, but people who have a platform, people who have a lot of voices, there's not that many of them that want to say, hey guys, let's create a new reality, let's opt out of the system. There's still, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is what's good, this is what's bad, this is what's this, here's how you should act, you can't do that, you can't do this, you need to stand up for this, you need to, and I just feel like, man, even those that are really open to these ideas are struggling to find that center, that presence, that knowing, that experience of letting that go. And I think the challenge with it is it's very difficult to mentally see how you can live in that state in the world as it is today, when there appears to be such a big mismatch. And I think even, this is what makes, I was speaking with a friend the other day, and he's like, I've always had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and I struggle to not have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I'm like, I remember when I first met you years ago, I jumped both feet in, after, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm out of that now, right? Every now and then you tip your toe back in, and no, but because it just doesn't resonate to tip your toe back in. But I understand why people keep 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and I know a lot of people who do it. And I wonder, it's like, yeah, I feel like the foot that's out is uploading that experience to the collective and giving people an opening. But the challenge is the foot that's in often says to people around them, I'm not fully committed. And I'm still going to just comply with your ideas when the time comes, because I don't want to lose the friend, or I don't want to make it seem like they think I'm crazy, or I don't want to, and I think to myself, like, we're living in an insane world. Like, if you observe it, not to be judgmental, but if you were to observe it, we live in an insane world. Mm-hmm. Are you worried about an insane world thinking you're insane? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what you have to add to that. I just kind of wanted to make those statements. But I resonate with how people feel, is what I'm saying, in regards to what we're saying.
No, I fully agree. I fully agree with what you're saying there. And I do agree with what people are feeling. The thing is, yeah, you're right. If you look at it and say, well, are you willing to stand up and say, this is the way I choose to live my life, and I'm not going to be afraid that I'm going to lose a friendship, or I'm going to lose a connection, or I'm going to lose this, because if they don't accept me as who I am, why do I need to accept myself being not myself? Because that's what happens. A lot of times we say the less of two evils. Well, if I am actually myself, nobody's going to like me, or this and that. That's just a concept or belief. So I'll just play that facade that they expect to see, so that I have these friends here. But then you feel uncomfortable being that facade, or being that particular role. So the point is, you're going to get to a point where you say, okay, I'm just going to be myself. And myself is changing constantly. So who wants to play with me, plays with me. Who doesn't, doesn't. But the thing is, a lot of times, even when I've been called crazy years ago, especially when, I was sharing a lot of stuff, a lot of people came back later on, sometimes years later, sometimes a little less, and say, wow, that stuff that I thought you were crazy about, man, it actually made sense, and whatever else, because, things are coming to that point. Now, to relate back to this whole thing about keeping 1 foot there and 1 foot out is, yeah, okay, it plays a service. But if you pay attention, when I have my foot and where it resonates the most, how I feel, And when I put my foot on the other, how it feels, then you can make a choice and say, where do I really want to put my focus? And you may end up saying, well, I want to put my focus where it feels best. And when I say it feels best, it feels most resonant. It feels like this feels more natural. This feels more of me rather than that. So the decision I've had to make years ago, and a decision that many people have done so, and even yourself, and saying, well, okay, you know, either I'm going to be myself no matter where I am, okay? If I'm with my family, I'm still going to be Franco the way I am. If I'm going to be with friends, I'm going to still be that way. If I'm talking in public, I'm still that way. If I'm with myself, I am still that way. I don't change that. It's always consistent. And the reason it's consistent is because the fact is I need to live fully with myself. Now, the only difference there will be if I am with the family dynamics and I'm having a conversation, and if they ask me a question, I'll give them the answer, but I'll give them only what they're ready to hear. And that's it. I'm not going to give them a lie. I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah, you should wear your mask. Yeah, you should do that. No, I go, yeah, a lot of people believe that. And a lot of people give power to it. However, I've noticed my observation, I've seen something different. I have a deeper understanding of it, but I chose not to. But everybody's free. You can do whatever one feels best for you. I'm not going to change it. I'm still being myself, but I'm also respecting their choice, right, of whatever they want to do. But I'm still myself. I'm not going to agree to their idea, their story, just because I want to be loved by them or accepted by them. What for? Then I have to give myself away. And why do I go in and play that role? Is it going to serve them? It doesn't serve me, and it's not going to serve them, because then all you're doing is reinforcing their current state. But if you go in already at a different state, even though you're not going to go in and say, oh, you're all wrong, the mask thing is all dangerous and whatever else, I'm just giving you as an example, you know, do you wear any mask? No, I don't. Because this is what I realized and what I found out. And for me, that makes more sense. That's what I'm going to do. And that's the way it's shared. And this is how people could use that. And so that's just the one part. The other part that's very interesting, which is an offering I made some time ago. I said, you know, when you have these leaders where they say the less of each evil, you know, which one? My recommendation is we have to have choices that we interview before they can even be brought in as a potential candidate. So if the Democrats or the Republicans want, and of course, we have to interview even their narratives. You know, what are they going to provide? No, we don't want that. We don't want this. Find another solution, whatever it is, and show me a dozen candidates or 5, and we're going to interview them. We're going to have them conversate or whatever it is, or, you know, we're going to interview them like a job. You go for a job, you don't hire the first guy. You say, oh, 2 guys came in, 2 of the worst, neither one is that great. Well, pick the one that is less worse, you know, whatever. No, you interview them and say, okay, if it's a fit, it's not a fit. Then no, next. And, but then they have to be respectful to what the masses want, to what is best for them. So, and they say, wow, that's a good idea. Why don't we do that? Well, let's bring it up. You know, why not? Why would we have to have 2 individuals coming in and say, one represents this and one represents that? Well, I want to see more of each one. So let's have several from that. But before we do that, we want to know exactly, and I don't want propaganda, I don't want bullshit or whatever you want to call it, of what you're going to do. No, we want to see what your true narrative is, what you want to do as the groups. And if it doesn't fit in, if people, and this all happens prior to election day. This is way ahead. You know, it's not about campaigning anymore. It's about, let's see what the offerings are and if it aligns, and if it's something we want to support, it's something that we want to be part of or not. And then we want to see the candidates.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's a similar process with the debates where, like, you know, they'll line up 8 or 9 of them or whatever. The challenge is it's like the questions are always you know, geared towards maintaining the world as it is today. Like, what are you going to do to basically keep it as it is today, but, you know, make a few things better? I remember when, some of the different ideas that came out of the Democratic side of things was ultimately Andrew Yang was talking about like the universal basic income. I think Marianne Williamson was trying to talk about creating a peace, Ministry of Peace or something to that effect. I forget the actual name of it. And like, these were kind of radically different ideas. It's just, I found that even when I would watch Marianne and some of the stuff that she would say, I'm like, she has a, great understanding of a lot of things, but it also feels like, guys, we need to be thinking a little bigger. I feel like everybody is, and this is where it becomes a little bit of a conflict, right? Is everybody's placating to the system as it is today, but then they'll turn around and say, well, hold on, we can't just change it all in one election cycle. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, maybe it will take a transition. Maybe it will take a lot of time, but here's the reality of the situation. You vote Marianne Williamson into power. Let's say it happens, right? Where you get enough votes, enough people to vote, but not only that, is all the other little tricks they have within the system, election fraud, changing the numbers, misreporting the numbers, the electoral college, all these little magician tricks that they can do to then put whoever they want in power. Let's say you removed all those. At the end of the day, capital still runs the society. Those with the most money are going to threaten, just like they do now to every single politician, threaten their life, threaten their whatever, or they're going to create them a situation, hey, you want an island with this, that, whatever, and everything you want, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you can have that. Push through this pharmaceutical bill. Push through this thing, push through it. It's like, it doesn't matter the person. The system and the way it functions will always produce the same result. And so it's like, for me, it's like, okay, how do we get, and the only thing that I'll always come back to at the end of the day is we keep dialoguing and we keep doing the work to become the awareness. So, not identifying with the ego, seeing it, allowing ourselves to understand, okay, that's the software program, but this is me, and I'm going to stay here, right? And we practice, and we practice, and we practice, and we see, and we understand, okay, this is the world for what it is, right? I have a whole method that I share with people when it comes to this, but it's like, again, sure, there's a whole group of people over here that still have no idea there's anything off with the world. They may feel it every now and then, they have no idea. So sure, show them that they're being manipulated or that there's things. You show them, help them see a little bit. A light bulb goes off, they go, okay, you ready for more of the conversation? Okay, we keep having the conversation, we keep going. But, I'm just not sure, other than continuing to encourage people to do that inner work and continuing to encourage another group of people to see more clearly what is truly happening in our reality so that they have a reason to want to see something different, right? Other than those two things, I'm like, I don't know what else to really do, And are those two things enough? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, they're huge. Okay, so the more awareness we have of ourselves and what you call the inner work, getting rid of a lot of the older aspects of ourselves, the older programs and whatever else is going on, the limits and labels that we've applied to ourselves, and actually connecting more to yourself. Because the more you connect with yourself, that you're more in the driver's seat, that in fact that the outside world is a reflection of your inner world in a sense, and every reflector or every projector, like a laser, because each one of us are like a laser, using it as an example, is already changing the scape. So that's the first part, and saying, well, okay, that's the most important. We're shifting through that, and everybody's going through it to some degree, and others are a lot more. The bringing up what you said about exposing the different things that are playing out so that they actually see what's going on, what we can call so-called corruption or whatever it is. And that's just another label of right, wrong, good, bad. But at the same time, seeing that, what that does, it cracks the shell that we've created around us. It's like, you put faith in someone or a system or organization or something of that nature. And because you're so conditioned to give so much trust and so much power to it, you don't question it. All of a sudden, for example, you give all this power to religion or all this power to various governmental people or these famous actors and whatever, all of a sudden you start seeing all the back end stuff that's going on that is really intense in the sense of, oh, wait a minute, I put so much faith and trust and whatever it is into this system, and now I'm looking at it. Now, of course, they're going to be shocked, and that's already creating an opening. It's like, oh, okay, maybe I need to start looking at something different. And so even knowing that, of course, even when we go into the fight thing, it's like, oh, corruption, we got to fight, we got to fix. That's still a crack, because first of all, they were docile. They were completely asleep, completely whatever I'm being told I'm going to do. Now I'm noticing, oh, wait a minute. I want something to change here. In fact, I'm seeing this wrongness. So that's kind of the bridging. The next part of the bridging is, or the next part of it is coming to a deeper realization, a deeper self-awareness of, hey, we're here. This is how it works. We can shape anything we want. Let's work together how we can create something harmonious. However, the only impedance you have, and as you pointed out too, is, you know, the ego mind and the stories and whatever we've been fed. You know, there was some piece that I saw on, I think it was on Facebook or whatever. Anyways, somebody says, how do you make true change? They threw a television set outside the window, right? In a sense, because then you're disconnecting yourself from that. But you can also throw all your mass media too, that's online also. But in a sense, it's like disconnecting from that, because the moment you start to disconnect from that, you actually get to do more of your inner work.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's not that reinforcement. We have that awareness wanting to come out in a big way. But then we keep putting layers and layers and layers on top. So the moment you start to disconnect that, you start looking at it and go, what world are we living in? You know, how can we actually shift this? And what would I do to shift it? So, and then we start using our own imagination rather than a programmed operating response system, you know. And so like even I did one of the episodes on fear and survival, which was just yesterday, actually. On advancing consciousness. And it was like, let's take a look at it, because most people deal with fear of change, fear of their world falling apart, fear that, you know, we're going to have this horrible virus or anything that's going to affect us, or we're going to have war, we're going to have whatever, right? There's fear. And then the fear is connected with survival. It's like, oh my goodness. And this is one of the reasons a lot of people make choices with governments, because they feel, okay, forget about, you know, looking at it the less evil and say, which one's going to make me feel a little bit more safe? Which one am I going to have less fear of? Which one's going to make me more survivable? You know, all of these stories. But that's what they're looking at, because those are the programs that say, if we don't have things a certain way, then, you know, we need to be afraid of it and whatever else. And this is one of the reasons that the questions, even when you're, you know, choosing a potential candidate for any of the parties or whatever it is, you know, the questions are based on, you know, the old way of the world. Is just to continue to project it, because if you actually ask the real questions and say, how do you see the world shaping forth? Like, for example, well, we got to rebuild the economy. What does that mean? What is rebuilding the economy? What is, you know, creating jobs? Is that what people really want? Have we asked that question? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Because then it gets them to think, rather than, okay, are you into job creation? Are you back to building the economy? Are you there to create security? You know, what are you going to do to the, you know, the terrorists and whatever else? Well, that, yeah, you said it's reflecting the old world. But no, the questions are to be different. And this is where we're going to be coming along, more and more of us as we're coming along, and ask the real questions and say, okay, do we actually have to play this game this way? Can we change it? Do we have to have you know, an organization that dictates what we actually get to see, what we get to experience, what, you know, what advancements we have? I mean, we have tremendous opportunity for advancement, but no, the pharmaceuticals and other organizations and so forth say, no, we got to keep it this way, because this way we, under the banner, make more money, or that we can get to control people, whatever it is, enslave them or whatever it is, right? The thing is, you know, No, we're choosing advancements in technologies, in healthcare, or whatever it is. What is your stand on that? Oh, we got to make more hospitals. No, 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 no. How about releasing the new ways? A lot of the stuff that's out there that we're not allowed. What steps are you going to take to make that happen? You know, we know that there's more. Why is it that the alternative stuff that actually works in some cases, we always kibosh or destroy or whatever it is, and the stuff that doesn't work and that causes more thing, we're throwing money at, we're putting power into it. These are the questions we need to ask, and these are the questions we're going to be asking as we go along, because in senses, how, if you want change, you got to ask different questions. You got to actually focus in a different direction.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like I think back to the early stages of the coronavirus when they were politicizing respirators, right? Meaning essentially they were saying they were trying to poke holes, because it was beneficial for one group to poke holes in another group of politics. So Trump was, being attacked because there wasn't enough respirators, and it's his fault. Okay, we understand it's a political thing. Okay, you play your game. And so they said, oh, well, Elon Musk has to make 5,000 respirators. He's got to shut off his technology. He's got to make 5,000 respirators. By the end of the week, I think he had made 5,000 or 3,000. Don't quote me on the actual number, but it was in the thousands. And I thought to myself, I'm like, there it is. It's that simple, right? It's like we get in the way of ourselves, right? Our society gets in the way of our expansion. Our society gets in the way of our innovation, of our brilliance, of our this. People have it backwards. They believe that our society is creating brilliance. It creates the money that they then put into the stuff needed to create the brilliance. It's like, well, hold on a second. The brilliance was there. The tools were all there. The raw materials are all here. Why is the money the decider of this particular thing? It doesn't make any sense, right? Well, then further, because we made it up anyway, but then further to that, it's like, okay, well, hold on, here we are. We already have a ton of factories. We already have a ton of cutting edge technology everywhere, a lot of which can be used to do different things, right? So it's somewhat fluid in its capability. So if we decided, if we said, you know what, world, coronavirus, we locked everybody down, shut down the economy, right? We did that, right? Oh, okay. You know what, world? We've decided that we're going to stop using fossil fuels. We're just going to stop doing it. Not because of the CO2, because that's a bit of a BS lie. We're going to stop doing it because why the heck are we doing it right now? Other than for the economy, right? So we're going to lower air pollution. We're going to have better air quality, and we're going to do something that's just more harmonious with every creature, including humans, and including the tree and the insect and everything, because that's you anyway, right? So then now you unleash the technologies where, guess what? They pull the energy right from the ether. So you don't have to have this conversation about, no, battery-powered cars, they got to mine all this stuff and they got to do it. It's bad for the environment anyway. It's like, okay, these are primitive technologies still. Exactly. We're still talking primitive technology. We have this, right? Okay, but yeah, how are you going to get it to build? It's going to take forever. Have every manufacturing company that's capable of doing that spend 2 weeks building it, and we'll have enough, perhaps. Maybe we won't. Maybe there's a 3-week period, 4-week period. I don't know. But the point is we can have these conversations. We can do things like this. Like, this is, when I think of things in this manner, I'm like, I've been thinking about this for like 6 or 7 years, ever since the idea for the Shift project first started. But it was like, you feel liberated because you realize there's only one barrier to all of this. It's not brilliance, it's not innovation, it's not needing the technology, it's not finding the solution, right? Going back to Obama, I remember watching a video clip. Someone asked Obama about renewable energies, and he goes, we don't yet have, in his charismatic voice, right? We don't yet have the technologies available to stop using fossil fuels. They don't exist. And then he's like smirking, because it's like, he knows.
Yeah, of course.
He knows. He wasn't there for the people. He was there to be a charismatic figure, to keep everybody docile for a little bit, right? So, I look at that, but when I think of these things, I think what's possible, I think, oh, this is liberating. We just got to get out of our way, and we got to start asking better questions, and we got to start thinking outside the confines of the system, and we got to start putting 2 feet into, yes, we can create a completely new world and reimagine it. Not, well, the first 10 years, we'll just try and make the system a little more equal. When that's done, we'll then just try. So what? We'll unveil technology in 250 years. Like, what for? We could do it right now.
Exactly.
So these are the messages that I like to try and get out there, because it just seems like we just get so stuck in that's not possible. Even open-minded people have told me, it's like I've stood in front of these technologies, like I've seen it with my own eyes, and I'll sit with people that write the books. They get invited to speak at all the conferences and blah blah blah. And these are open-minded people. Oh no, those technologies are a unicorn. I've never seen one. I don't even know that they exist. I'm like, how do you not know they exist and you do this work for a living? I don't understand. Like, how do you not know it exists? How great was your will? How big was your will in wanting to find and wanting to see and wanting to know? Or was it just, if I get my book done, I can get X amount of sales and I can get X amount of people to come to my conference. So my head is really in the old world still, but I met my goals, I met my targets, right? And this is the challenge is it's like feeling as though we need more people to be stepping in to this reality, because you can live both at the same time. It's totally possible. I mean, I'm doing it, you're doing it, right? Like I said, every now and then I kind of feel like I step the toe in and you feel it, and then you just step and go. But it can be done, I don't know. I'm ranting again.
No, but what you're saying is a ranting is actually true, because in fact, this is something I've also shared for years now, is the fact of it's the obstacles, the illusionary obstacles. Oh, it has to be transitioned. And one of the biggest thing is, we got to keep, what are we going to do if we wipe out the oil industry and the electrical industry and this industry and that industry? There's going to be millions of people out of work or whatever it is, or, billions or whatever you want to call it. Well, we now have to look at it differently, where we distribute things differently. We do things differently. It's like you said, you go to Tesla and say, hey, forget about those lithium batteries and whatever else. Let's build those technologies where those cars recharge. In fact, forget about even the wheels or the fact of all of that stuff, because it can hover. We have that technology, uses whatever, and it's taking energy completely. No charging stations, no nothing, right? And we don't have to have all these cables and generators all over the place, wires running all over the place. We can let go of that. Every time a storm comes along or something like that, oh man, we're going to destroy the infrastructure and whatever else. Why even have the infrastructure? So if you step out of that, all of that stuff, then you say, okay, wait, listen, instead of everybody have to work 40 hours a week, everybody takes a turn in doing something they actually like, and they only do 10 hours, 5 hours, whatever. You distribute what work is really necessary, and we advance whatever it isn't. But there's so much technology, so much creativity, imagination that's being stifled and just waiting and waiting and waiting. Like you said, you've seen it. I've actually played with some of these technologies in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Electric cars, for example, were around in the late 1800s. Hemp cars were in the 18 and then in the early part of 1900. All that stuff was already there. It's like, what happened? Oh yeah, we lost the technology? No, we just said, no, we want to keep this part of it. But now we have to come to the realization we don't have to do that anymore. Go ahead.
Well, those weren't economically viable. So
no, that's I love that economical viable part. Just simplifying a lot of what we have and so forth already makes it not only better for the environment, but the way we live. I mean, look at it this way. Forget about the CO2 and all of the other stuff that they're talking about, whatever, it doesn't matter. We don't have to go there because a lot of it is constructed in such a way. But look at it, this shutdown. The water started to get clear. The air started to get clear. And where they had the most problems with the respiratory areas were the area that were more condensed with pollution, right? So if we actually, this is the thing. This is the question. What are you going to do about CO2? Just for that narrative. Okay, that's the evil. Forget it, does the plants use it and everything else? No, forget about that. It's killing us. All right. Now, if you're totally devoted, then you say, okay, we cut back on the money that we're putting in to support the old structure. Let's now boost new technologies to come in. And all of a sudden, all that stuff comes in. The factories can shift over very quickly and start producing what is necessary. You've solved it. It's not going to take a 20-year, oh, we're going to start increasing the level of electric cars, and then we're going to start cutting back the emissions and whatever it is. It's true what you said. It's like, well, we got to keep the system in there, but we can edge it along, bit by bit, right? It's not about that. It's like if we're truly committed to make a change, then everything gets out of the way. How do we do the solution? Like, for example, that you just gave with the respirators. We need respirators. Come on, okay. All of a sudden, different companies jump in and start making respirators. And before you know it, we've got an Apple. Regardless, the respirator has its own story that's useless too. But anyways, it's just a matter of shifting it. Look at it this way. All of a sudden, we need masks. Everybody's making masks. It's coming out of yin yang now. It's like all of a sudden and now, of course, we just can't make plain masks. We got to make fancy ones with faces on it, with little things on it, and whatever else. And all of a sudden, there's a huge shift. Anything could be done that way. You can shift any part of it. Okay, guys, we're going to get together. We're going to roll out this. And I'm not saying that those things are the answers, because they're not. But I'm just showing what you said. You can shift from doing one thing to something else, but you want to focus on something that's supportive in the sense of, okay, let's do what really is beneficial for humanity. Why would you say, oh, we got to have chemo, we got to have radiation, we got to have this, and we're still spending billions of dollars doing research when so many other technologies, so many other solutions have been uncovered and try to put it out of the equation? Why don't we put the focus on that? If we are truly caring for healthcare, if you're truly caring for humanity's best interest, then why are we not focusing there? It doesn't stop there. If we're truly looking at the best thing, why are we putting toxins in the food? Why are we doing this? And why are we doing that? Those are the questions we have to ask and say, well, that doesn't make any sense. If we really, really want to create a better life stream for everybody, then we got to look at some of the things that impede, or what are some of the things that give us the opposite, so that we can put the attention to shift that. You can't have these things in there because this is poison or whatever it is. Instead of mandating and say, well, you have to use lots of whatever those things are called, that Roundup and whatever else that I can't say it. And all of these other things, or these other additives and whatever else. And they're banned in certain countries, but they're okay here and whatever else. And you're looking at it and saying, wait a minute. If we really, 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 really care or concerned about, the well-being, then we would actually open our eyes and say, okay, what are the better solutions? Instead of depending on pharmaceuticals or whatever it is, or the old construct of the medical systems or anything of that nature. And those are small facets of it. And you said it, you've got to ask the right question. Well, if we really want to create a better world, what can we do? And if they say, well, we got to create more jobs, is that the answer? And what does it give to have more jobs? Because more jobs mean we got to make more crap, more stuff, more things. We got to consume more, whatever it is. Is that actually for our personal well-being? Is it for our environmental well-being? How is it actually serving us? Is it actually providing us more freedom? Or is it enslaving us because all of us have to be busy creating nothing or something that is really represents nothing in a sense, because it's not even beneficial in any way, shape, or form, right? You got to look at all of those things, and these are the questions people are going to be asking along the way. And yeah, you're doing what you're doing is like putting those questions in their head and say, yeah, maybe we're not asking the right question. We're not making individuals accountable for what we are requesting, instead of just accepting whatever they get. Because if you look at it, like I've said to many people, most of these people in authority, so-called illusionary authority or expertise, really don't know anything or know very little or have been conditioned to a system. You know, you can blame Trump for going a certain way. Well, remember when he introduced those two substances, zinc and something else? I can't remember what it was. Yes. And all of a sudden he gets bashed. Oh, like, yeah, drinking bleach or whatever it is. And meanwhile, now some of the doctors are saying, hey, we've been trying it and it works out great. But look at that. Oh, no, but we have to have respirator. We got to put this. Well, there's been many doctors, many people that are involved on the front line, saying every person that we put these darn respirators, they have a 95% to 100, almost 100% chance of non-living. But if we don't, they survive. Yeah. And yeah, maybe some don't. That's true. It's like, okay, where's that information coming from? You know, why are we not looking at that and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not working. We need to look at it something different. You know,
and it's interesting too, because, you know, you look at that, right? And you know, you step into the old world for a second and you say, oh, well, you know, who's being held responsible for, you know, the respirators? Like doctors were saying, guys, this is the wrong treatment. Our patients this doesn't look right. There's something wrong here. And no, censor those doctors, not allowed to be on air. Don't interview them. No, censor. There's you know, I had someone tell me the other day, there's a scientific consensus that, you know, this works. According to who? What scientists? The one that you're willing to listen to, or the ones that, you know, like, hold on a second. There's a whole bunch of people with a different narrative, same credentials, different narrative, and they're not allowed to talk. I don't understand, right? And so you look at it, and then I was looking, you know, the respirator thing, I think most people don't realize was probably one of the biggest forms of medical malpractice we've seen in probably a decade or more. I mean, it's huge. Interestingly, they've kept really quiet about that, right? Because at this moment in time, there's probably a great deal of responsibility that could be taken against those hospitals in New York. There could probably be some serious lawsuits. And now what I'm seeing come up, I've been reading a number of things in the news and so forth, where they're preparing a lot of legislation, a lot of policy that will completely protect companies, corporations, hospitals, governments, vaccine makers for mandating vaccinations. Meaning, if the company decides or is pressured to, because, for example, people are saying, well, they won't mandate the vaccine. They're like, well, yeah, if you want to come to work, you got to get a vaccine. Well, if you want to go to the store, you got to get a vaccine. So, yeah, we're not mandating it, but you have to stay in your house, grow your own food. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so what it seems like with the real world road that's being paved here is, you know, if they want to open things back up, right, fully, right, then this vaccine is going to be the thing, right? And they're probably going to tell the companies, you're not allowed to have people come in unless they're vaccinated. So the company is now forced to then say, you have to get a vaccine. Well, now the company is liable for forcing the employee to get the vaccine. Well, we're going to write legislation that protects you, so don't worry. So it's like, well, hold on a second. We're getting to a point where a system that is going to forcibly, you know, control and decide for humans what it is that they have to do in order for them to live their lives within the system, and nobody's going to be held responsible. Everybody's going to be protected. So when people are dying, or when people are getting sick from the vaccine, or when these, you know, things are going to happen, because it inevitably does. It happens all the time. People don't know about it, but it happens all the time. Swine flu vaccine was a disaster. Any vaccine that is rushed is a disaster, right? And so this is where it's headed, right? And so it's like, again, you look at it and you go, what? Does that make any sense? Like, you know, is that the world you want to plug into? Is that the world you want to support? Is that the world you want to keep complying with? You know, no, it doesn't make sense, right? Like, it's quite obvious. Like, you can explain it to a 5-year-old, or maybe not a 5-year-old, but an 8-year-old, and they probably understand to some extent that, hey, this doesn't make sense, right? And that's the thing, right? Is we seem to, like, in the unconsciousness of not knowing who we are and the lack of awareness, and the ego mind runs everything. The ego mind takes simply what the media says and accepts it, and then goes, okay, great, yeah, that's just what we'll do. But it's not getting better. The reality is not getting, you know, more thriving, and it's not getting, you know, more enjoyable, if you will. It's getting more intense.
Well, it's more intense, more limiting. We all of a sudden, like you were saying, you can't go to work, or you can't go to a particular store, you can't go do this, go do that. What is that showing? It's showing that our world is getting smaller and more crazy in a sense. And how does that world feel? Does it feel comfortable? Does it feel like I want to stick around here and I want to be part of this? This is the question that we have to ask ourselves. It's like, hey, honestly, nobody has power over us. If we turn around and say, well, this is not the game we want to support, then it can't be supported. Because you have to look at it. It doesn't matter what they mandate. It's up to the people that will abide to it and say, well, like even the doctors, if the doctors turn around and say, well, I'm not going to vaccinate or I'm not going to do this because I don't want to support it. And there have been quite a few that have done that whole idea. And yeah, okay, they lose their license, they do whatever, or the fact that they want to give them facts and so that the patient has some information and decides it. Because the thing is, we're starting to notice more and more of this is coming to the surface. Like even all of these documentaries are coming up that are exposing certain things. And like you said, you rush a vaccine, it's going to be disastrous. Yeah, maybe to the next level of disaster for sure. But even the ones that have been around, I've had people that turned around, experts, doctors that said, even the people that were involved, they said there's not a single one ever that has not caused more damage than benefit.
Yeah.
Not one. And some have been around 50 plus years.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to come with a good one. In a sense, we've already, some of the trials they have done already have created some pretty, intense experiences and checking out. And that's okay. People like to play with that stuff. That's fine. But, we have to start looking at that and say, well, this doesn't make any sense. And like you said, an 8-year-old, possibly a 5-year-old, some even 2-year-olds now would understand this and say, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with 2-year-olds, at times, they look at the world and they turn around and they say, it doesn't make sense why people do this or act that way, whatever. Why? Because they're accessing a little bit more of their consciousness and awareness. It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't really jive here. It doesn't work, even though they may be able not to be able to articulate it the same way, but they can see it. The thing is, right now, we're setting the stage for more and more people to see it. Do we need everybody to be on board? No. As long as we get a group of people or enough people around, and that's getting closer and closer to that, the rest of them will say, oh, okay, we'll follow whatever is coming along, because a lot of them are followers, and a lot of them may want to go down that path and use whatever the old world will represent to kind of check out with or do whatever, right? And there may be the example of, okay, I carried on down this path. Now look at what situation I'm in or circumstances or whatever it is, right? So, yeah, the thing is this level of craziness has a highly, how can I say?
Evolutionary effect.
Oh, it's that, sorry?
A highly evolutionary effect.
Thank you. Because until, like you said earlier, until it gets so crazy that we finally say enough is enough, let's look at some other way of doing this, okay? Yeah, people get complacent very easily. They'll follow the rules very easy until it becomes too uncomfortable, until they have that hallelujah idea of opening their eyes and going, wait a minute here, something is not right or rotten here, or something does not make sense. This is not a narrative I want to support any longer. And we're getting pushed to that even further. Like you said, we're going to get into the fall and they may roll out, and that the intent is there. How we do with it, what it goes, the election. Yeah, it's going to play out even more intense. But those are all things that will push people into a higher state of potential evolution because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. At the end of the day, that's the ultimate. I think one of the biggest messages that could be shared at this time is even if you were to take peace from a moment to moment basis, even in just the fact that the amount of people that are going like this. Yeah, sure. There's still lots that are going, no, this is fine. There's the, this, we need to do this. There's still lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people. I've already seen so many, that were not questioning things prior, that are now questioning things, that we're moving things forward. And you say to yourself, well, but we didn't do anything to move things forward. Well, you did. You shared information. You had conversations. You were respectful to others in how you did that. Maybe you are the type of person that does practice expanding their awareness and being in attunement with their true natural self, and you practice that, and that opens people up. And when you open those people, so yeah, you may not have created a piece of policy or marched down the street with a bunch of signs, but that's not the only way to do something. There's many ways to do, and I think it's powerful.
Yeah, and that's the thing is too. I mean, what you're doing, Joe, what I'm doing. I share a lot of with the Advancing Consciousness series. I'm sharing a lot of the back end understanding of how things actually work, how we actually work, what we actually have available within ourselves. It's not for everybody. Not everybody's ready for it. It is for everybody if they actually were on board, but they're not. So it's not for everybody. But the ones that feel useful for them, it actually reminds them what they already know, and the ego may have covered up as much as possible. They're the ones that are taking action in their life. They're already shifting themselves. Their energy is shifting. The way they see the world is shifting, and so forth. And the same thing with you. Yeah, even if it's exposing, what's happening, but also showing that, hey, wait a minute, we have other choices. We can do this or that, whatever. Not that you tell them what to do. You're just basically, these are potential. These are some of the viewpoints. How about if we actually looked at it this way, or maybe another way around it, but let's look at it this way. The people that listen to your stuff or whatever you share and whatever I share and what other people share and so forth, even the ones that are, other experts and doctors that are on the front lines and have noticed, hey, it's not quite this way, whatever else, they're all instruments to kind of stimulate this observation to open up people's eyes and say, wait a minute here, there's something that we need to really start taking a look at, because what we're being told may not be exactly what it is. And that becomes more of a question that comes up. So this is the thing. All of this is serving, and the beauty of it, more and more people are really resonating with it. More and more people are drawn to it. They may come and go, but it's like what you were saying earlier. You're going to put your foot in one area and then in another area, and then you're going to start to notice one foot in this area doesn't feel as comfortable, but the foot in this area feels a lot more comfortable, but the world's not reflecting it, so I'll jump in, bang, and then you start making more of a choice to go into the area that feels more natural. And we've all gone through it, play the game and don't play the game. It's like, yeah, okay, sometimes we have to play the game, but then you get to a point, and this is the thing, and I noticed it in my own experience, but this also reflects a lot of people. You say, okay, well, they expect me to play this game. Let me play this game. And of course, this goes back quite a few years ago on my perspective, on my way of seeing it. But that happened to you for many years too. And say, well, okay, I'm going to do what everybody else is doing, or I'm going to agree with everybody. And you're there, but you're looking at it going, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel in alignment. It doesn't even resonate. And then when you go into that other environment, you have now a contrast, and contrast is very useful, but the contrast is observing to really find yourself in it and saying, okay, well, this feels more natural. So you can go, your family's evolving too, but if you look at a family or friendship or whatever it is, it's still focused in the what we call the inverted 3D, 2D state of life, where everything is backwards and so forth. And their talk is, oh yeah, look at this idiot's in power and this is that and whatever it is. And you go, oh yeah, you're right and whatever else. But if we put this other person in place, you can choose to play that. But how does it feel at the end of it, or even during? Does it give you that icky feeling and so forth? That gives you a point of that contrast. It's like, nah, I don't think I want to feed that. I'd rather be myself and rather share what I'm learning and what I'm thinking, but not to push it on anybody else. Just share what I see. That's what people are doing, and more people are realizing that. And there are some people that like to go on the soapbox and like to be the preacher, to be whatever. Oh yeah, whatever it is. Well, that can shake up a few things and so forth. That's true, but at the same time, are you getting through people, or are you allowing people's walls to go up? You don't want to put walls up. That's what I've always noticed. You don't want to put anybody's walls up. You don't want to make anybody wrong. And when I say that, I say it in a sense, it doesn't matter if they have a skewed perception of it, because that's what they're seeing. You don't want to point it out that they have a skewed perception. You want to share, I can relate with what you're saying. I can relate with what you are focusing on. And, at one point, I was there too, but I started to notice something. And this is what I've noticed. And then they're making their own. It's like, okay, I've had a little bit of doubt myself, because the wall comes down. It's like, that's interesting. Now, sometimes they're going to say, yeah, I don't agree with that. And I go, I could understand. I understand you don't agree with it. And, I'm not telling you that you have to agree. I'm just sharing what I've observed and whatever else. So you're not allowing anybody's walls to come up. And if they put it up, and that's okay, it's whatever. But you planted the seed or whatever it is. And that is much more powerful. So you share the information because you're planting the seed, you're stimulating what they already know. You're putting, you can call it doubt in their mind, but the doubt was already there. What you're doing is highlighting the doubt.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's somebody else doubting, or that didn't feel in resonance with what is being the narrative or what's being shared or whatever it is. And that's really the main part here. And the contrast, the polarity, and the sides and all of that stuff right now that's really being stimulated, the restriction that's stimulated. This is just part of the platform for us to be able to finally, say, hey, we're not going to go there anymore. We're going to start looking at some new choices. Ask the right questions, or right expanded questions.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you're doing an interview, just to give you an example, you're going to hire somebody. You say, this is the job we have, and this is the services that we require. What can you offer? How do you see as a solution or a potential way of bringing that into our corporation, into our company, into our group, right? You're going to interview and ask the questions that will bring to the surface what they have as an offering that will match with what your community, your group, your company is going to do. That's how we do it as a world. They say, hey, okay, you want to come as a leadership? What solutions are you going to provide for us? Because this is what our mandate is. Our mandate is to create a sustainability and flourishing. We're no longer wanting to be governed, controlled, limited, or anything of this nature. What are you going to do? In a sense, what are you going to focus on? How can we work with you to create a cleaner environment, create an environment where we are no longer sick people that, or people that are in non-functionality or poor functionality, so that we have more of that, what can we do in place? So it's really redirecting the questions so that we're getting people that are going to be aligned with what they're doing.
Yeah, that's again, that goes back to the whole idea of thinking things in terms of, well, we're going to be thinking outside of what's going on here. So I'm inviting you to think outside of it too, as opposed to, oh yeah, hey, I'm coming for a job, or hey, I'm coming to be the next president, or blah blah blah. How do we just maintain the system as it is, right? And I guess that one of the last things I guess I'll share here is just the idea that it's like that conversation, of opening the dialogue, of having the conversation of reimagining our reality. I don't see something else that could be, other than perhaps, like I say, the identification with your awareness and really expanding that aspect of yourself. I don't see something else that could be more important if we wanted to put a label like that on it. It's like, it seems it's time. Like, we need to be having the conversation of how else our reality could look, and don't limit the mind to just, but it's got to fit within the system as it is today. Dream it as big, as deep, as far as possible, that really resonates with yourself. And then sure, look back at our world and say, okay, well, perhaps in some instances, we might have to create a step to get there. In other instances, we could probably just jump right there, and let's play with it. But at least let's have that conversation, as opposed to going under all the beliefs of it's got to take 50 to 100 years, and all the beliefs that we can never change it anyway, and all the beliefs that deep state has all the power and there's nothing we can do, and or the beliefs that we just have to keep working within the system, right? We should keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. It's not, It's not
Yeah, you remember the analogy of the elephant, where you get a baby elephant, you tie a big powerful rope into a big column and so forth. So what it does is actually it sees itself restricted.
Yeah.
So as long as the rope is there, it knows it can't escape. Then of course they become bigger animals, bigger elephants. And then at that point in time, now they're still tying the rope on the ankle and putting a little peg, which they can pull out completely, easily, right? But they got conditioned that rope means that I'm confined, right? Yeah. And that's what we did. The system has created the illusion that we're confined. As little children, you have to look at it. As little children, we had no confinements, but everybody kept saying we have confinements. This is the way that we play the game. You get conditioned and conditioned and conditioned, like the elephant conditioned that, yeah, we can't escape the system. We can't escape the rope. We can't escape whatever. So right now, most of us are still feeling that the system, we can't escape the system. We can't change the system that much. It has to be gradual, whatever it is. But what happens? This has happened before. You spook the animal, you spook the elephant, and all of a sudden it jolts back, drops the idea that it's attached to something, and it frees itself because it was just a little peg. And even if it was a pole, because of its size and magnitude and power, and this is what's happening right now. We're being spooked to the point where we actually realize we're really not tied down, and we can actually change it. And we can change everything, like you said, with a bridge or a step, like you said, a step, or just go from A to B, and that is our new layout. And B can go to C and D and E and so forth along the way, right? And that's what it is. Now it's showing, doesn't matter where we're at, we're confined. Hey, wait, guys, look. You can't go out there. The boogeyman's out there. Whatever you want to call it. The virus is out there. The terrorists out there. The bad people out there. The whatever, right? And it just keeps emphasizing to the point of enough. We're not doing this anymore. We're stepping out of this thing. Because the moment we realize that, and that's what we're staging ourselves and what we've been staging ourselves for, things can change like this. It's not a 10, 20, 30, 40 year, 200 year process. No, this whole concept of evolution, evolution works in stages, complete bullshit. No, evolution is what? A shift in consciousness, creating new realities. Instantaneous. That's it. We can change anything very easily. As long as we let go of the idea that we're restricted by a system. The system is fake. It's all created. It's an illusion. We have the power to say, we're not going to play with this anymore. We create a new system. And eventually we have no system because we already have an internal system. But this system now has to match us where we want to create our reality. And that's it. And the system has to be fluid. No more rigidity, any way, shape, or form. We're not binding to the fact that we created this, now we're stuck with this for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. No, we create this, and each one is a stepping stone. The replication is the same as the breath, being present. In our presence, look at it this way. If you look at the world for what it is, okay, this is the playground. This is what's existing. Let me take action to adjust this playground so it matches how it feels more natural for me. Instead of saying, oh, look at what happened before, focusing on the past. What can happen in the future? Oh my God, we can have another plague. We can have another, terrorist attack. We can have all of this other stuff. We're not going to go there. The ego loves to do that. But we're like, this is what we got now. How do we shape this? What do we want to apply, look at, to start creating our reality today? Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, not 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, now. And be willing, let go of the fear of letting go of the existing system, right? We had to let go of our jobs. What happened? Okay, all of a sudden, banks are giving leeway for your payments, and the government's putting out money. Your credit rating can't get changed because of this, and you could see how those measures will just plug in. You could plug in anything, and it doesn't have to create what a lot of people call collapse in the economy or whatever it is. Well, we're going to have to transition all of this, because we're going to have to take a look at what's serving us and what's not serving us. Why hold on to the old stuff, the old way of life? This is not what we came here to do. We came here to evolve. We came here to expand. We became more enlightened. But what we're doing is we're transmuting an old way of life, which was a pretty cool dance to have that up to this point in time. But that's not what we're here for anymore. We're not here to repeat the old. We're here to create the new. So the new means you have to let go of whatever is there. But when you look at it for what it is. This is what we've created up to this point. This is what we give power to. This is what we've played with up to this point in time. Now, let's do something different and take the action around that.
That's all. Well said. Where for our viewers here, where can they find out more about what you have to offer in your work?
Okay, well, one of the key places that I'm putting a ton of content is, and some of the content you're already sharing on your platform there, is Advancing Consciousness series, which is on YouTube. It is on Facebook too. So I do have a Facebook group called Advancing Consciousness series group page, which has all the different things, including what we're just doing now. But I also have a YouTube channel, which is called Advancing Consciousness series, which I was putting out 3 couple of hour long, I can't say workshop, but episodes that actually expanded our consciousness and really allowed us to connect with ourselves much more powerfully on that platform. So there's a lot of information there, and I've had so much feedback from people saying, well, I'm so happy that I've actually found it, because it actually started to really match with what I've been thinking of or feeling or something like that. And you brought certain clarities. You put some of the extra dots in there that I was missing or whatever it is. So that's there. I'm also rolling out an Advancing Consciousness podcast, which we're pretty close to launching shortly. So that will be available too. So those are the 2 key parts that, putting a ton of content out there for people. And the content is free to a certain degree, where, we request that they can support us financially through contributions and whatever else, because we're not, and right now we have over 70 videos there. Now, some of them, if I take some of the replication out, because there were some that I had to post twice, there's still like 63 different videos on different topics and so forth that are there, all current to what's going on right now and what are powerful tools to facilitate. And conversations like this. I mean, I was on a summit recently. I mean, if they check my Facebook pages, they'll notice that that's there. And if they check the channels, they'll see that's there. I do have a second channel. It's called Franco and DeNicola, which is a little bit outdated. We're gonna plug some more stuff in there because we have a lot of content. But yeah, that's what we have as offerings at this point. That is the most current and is the most, I can call it life-changing, but it's up to the person. It's not for everybody in a sense, even though it is, but it's not everybody's going to be ready for it. I have people that are still in the very first few, because they're saying, takes a little bit of it to integrate within themselves, because sometimes it could be shocking, because it's like, oh, I believe this, and now you're showing me that it's not quite that way. Wow. So they start looking at their life and start to make adjustments. Others have been keeping up with it right up to date. So we're on episode 35. We just did episode 35, but that's one content there. And then we have quite a few videos on, all of these things are being live streamed. So if you actually subscribe, then you'll be notified of all the live streams. Like anybody that's subscribed on the channels would have known today. Anybody that follows my Facebook, even my public page and personal page, I put notifications so everybody knows. I put some notification on your pages too. And I am streaming on your platform directly too, to your YouTube channel and to your Facebook channel, the Collective Evolution group. So yeah, so it's there. That's how they can go to my website too. One of the things that I do suggest, if you go on the website, register to join the community. You will get emails time to time to events and topics and stuff like that that comes out. We post it. We also have Let's Talk About You, which is a group that we have every other Wednesday, where people come together on Zoom. We have I think we have about 70, 80 people right now, but not all of them come online at the same time because of the fact that some people are in different parts of time zones and so forth. But they can join. It's very inexpensive. It's $30 a month, and we're on there twice a month for 2 hours or so. People can ask questions. We have discussions. We go in a little more deeper into certain things. The reason people like that is because they feel more of a community, like-minded people, because the people that come on are all kind of and they see each other because they're all little screens of themselves, and then as they speak, they can come forth. Not everybody shows their faces, but the majority do, and they feel part of the community and the talk, because they actually share each other's experiences too, besides what I teach, so that they see, oh, it's not just what Franco is saying. They've applied certain things in their lives and they've changed. Now, some of the people in the group have been with us for over 1.5 years because this started 1.5 years ago. So some of them, have a lot to say about how, they've seen certain changes happen in their life. So that's called Let's Talk About You. And so they can access that through my website. We'll post it also on, if you're looking at the write-up on any of the stuff I posted, that when I presented it, you'll see at the bottom, there's a link there that takes you to some of our workshops. And in one of the workshops in there is that membership, which is Let's Talk About You. So that's that. And whatever conversations we have in the future or whatever else, it's always great to talk to you because you're quite open-minded, and it's, we have a bit of a history in the sense we've known each other for a while now, even way before Collective Evolution came about, in the self-discovery part and the different phases. And it's great to see, the progress you've made and all the changes you've made, the contribution that you're making in the world, the information that you're sharing has been, quite instrumental. Yeah, there's certain narratives that may not be too open to the idea of what we share. But, the thing is, more and more people, and there's a backside to that, because the more you get blocked, the more interest you create. It's like, oh, they're blocking it. Yeah. Get the wrong, when you get tabooed about something, people go, oh, no. Then I want to know what they're tabooing, Right. Yeah, even this whole idea of fake news and stuff like that, some people will believe it. Other people are going, hey, no. I want to get their viewpoint. I want to find out what they have to say on the whole matter.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've been saying a lot. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like we're just starting to lose complete interest, even in engaging with fact checkers, to the point where it's like you're just gonna keep coming back and doing this, and there's no logical explanation. It's just they're gonna do what they're gonna do, and there's nothing we can do about it, and we're not gonna stop saying what we're saying. What we say is so much research, so much care, so much love, so much accuracy behind it. It is what it is.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is, I've noticed with yourself as you evolve too, with the content and so forth. It's not about bashing anything. It's to see it for what it is, see what's there, look at a different viewpoint, how we can possibly take action that is not going to be fueling the old system and regimes and whatever else. And it's really just stimulating their awareness, their self-consciousness. Because really, what's the shift about? It's a shift in consciousness. It's really accessing more of your knowing, more of your empowerment, more of, hey, we actually have freedom to design it, that we have actually come here to play. That's really what changes at this point. It's not like, you know, consciousness is, or, you know, we're going into organic third dimensional consciousness or fifth dimensional consciousness. It's basically the shift is consciousness. When the consciousness shifts, our reality shifts. What
Yeah.
we create, how we play, what we choose to do together shifts. You know, there's been many people that have pushed um, even the Venus project and whatever else is pushed the fact of, you know, creating a new reality, which is fantastic. But one of the things I heard from him at the end, you know, he said, as much as I have this new ideal world, you know, that we can create that's sustainable, whatever it is, I've come to the realization until the consciousness shifts, it's not going to roll out
Yeah.
because the obstacles are always coming one after the other. And that realization is the key because until the consciousness shifts, we're not going to change the old game. And now we are more and more every day shifting our consciousness.
That's all. That's what it's all about.
And that's what collective evolution is about. And this is what
That's everything.
advancing consciousness is
Yeah.
about too.
Yeah. That's everything. All right. Well, thanks so much for having this conversation. I think there's been a lot of interesting insights, and you know, again, even for me, it's like a lot of it is like sometimes it's like it's just enjoyable to have someone on the other end of having these conversations, as opposed to just kind of creating content. And sometimes it's like, yeah, there's comments and stuff later, but you know, it's nice to just be able to go back and forth and go into stuff. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for you know, accommodating for it, and you know, and if people have questions and stuff like that, you know, we can always collect it and then have another discussion if you're open to it at some point, and we can cover certain things. I mean, this is about really, it's not about us. It's not about, you know, what collective evolution represents or Franco or advancing consciousness. It's, you know, we're all in it together. We're a team here. We're all choosing to have an upgraded experience and so forth. So we're all contributing. Different people are contributing different things, and we're contributing the way we contribute to stimulate what we already are choosing to embark on, and that's it.
Yeah, so that's all. Well
So
said.
thank you for playing with me, and we'll connect again. So yeah, we went a little longer than we thought we would, but it was really a good way to experience it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll just say goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you again